Hello, Chuck.
Hey, good afternoon.
Yeah, nice to see you here. Good things that we got going on, I hope. Get some
Yeah,
people.
I certainly will give it a shot. As I said, it's not seat of my pants is not my forte in terms of writing, but
And that's part of my approach is small gulps to get a chance to get practice and comfortable with it. Maybe you'll find some capability there you hadn't seen before, or maybe you'll find out, okay, no, it's not working. But I just wanted a place for people to take the chance.
yeah, no, I want to try it.
And the worst that happens is you have 5 minutes of junk that you throw away. I'm trying to get my prompting spreadsheet operational here. Because of course I closed the spreadsheet. And so now everything's got to be different. There we go. Yeah, I put together that spreadsheet as a demo for the pantsing workshop at FireCon. And it's just put some random concepts up on the screen and see if they get you moving.
Is it purely random? Because it seems like there's maybe a sci-fi theme, or maybe I just see that everywhere I look anyway.
I think it's what you see in it.
Yeah.
Because it literally is, I listed some 300 professions or character types and 300 settings and 300 problems and 300 random elements. And being I'm a sci-fi guy myself, there was some science fiction and some fantasy in there too, but I'll bet they're not more than 15 or 20%.
Yeah.
Because I'd get on a theme where it's like, okay, well, doctor. Yeah, okay, but cardiologist, neurologist, nurse practitioner, EMT. And so there goes a dozen onto the list of all the different medical professionals I could think of. I somewhat surprised myself that in the genres I work in most often, fantasy and science fiction, I wasn't coming up with nearly as many character types as I was coming up with in general fiction. All right, we have Mike.
Mike.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Dana's coming in.
Dana.
And Tom coming in. I'm going to apologize in advance that I have Starlink satellite internet, which is really good and fast, except when the satellites go behind the trees, and or when a bad storm comes through. So there will be points where I will just freeze up for 10 or 15 seconds. But hopefully what we've got going on here is a conversation, not just a me talking. Closing up, that shouldn't slow you folks down at all. And I don't know why the rain was interfering. I did a mystery workshop at 1 my time, and the rain was freezing me up, which is not normal for Starlink at all.
That is normal for Colorado.
Oh, okay.
Clearly, there are alien beings in the rain. I mean, be advised of invasion of the body snatcher stuff happening.
Oh.
Well, I had satellite TV and major rainstorms, total interruption, and you couldn't get it back until the storm ended.
Yeah. Well, Starlink's supposed to be better at that because the satellites are lower. But today it wasn't very good at that. So who knows? It's my only option out here in the boondocks. All right. Trent has entering the room. Give another couple of minutes because I'm sure we got people with busy lives going on. So give them a chance to come in.
Right.
Well, in that case, I'll refresh my drink, so I'll be well fueled.
Absolutely.
I'll go warm
I
up.
need all the help I can get.
Yeah. Oh, and if I disappear for a little while, I'm doing laundry at the same time. So
Good use of time. I should probably be doing dishes, but it's a little harder to do that in spurts.
And Martin, you dictate your stuff, right?
Yep. Almost 100% in the first draft.
That's interesting.
50-50 in the second draft. So it's something I built up over time with practice, now to the point where on an average day, I can do 54 words per minute dictating. And on a really exceptional day, I can near 100.
Wow.
And I'm not a fast typist. I get maybe 20 typing.
Yeah, my brain works slower than I can type, so dictation would do me no good, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, that's if your biggest chunk of your time, writing time, is thinking time, then solving the mechanics doesn't help with that.
Yeah.
And
And then I
that's
get better.
that is a lesson from a book long ago called The Goal. It was a self-published industrial engineering novel, because that was the way the guy thought he could teach his lessons better. It became sort of a fad classic. Obvious, but some places overlook it. Identify where your bottleneck is. Work on that. Working on other things just means you're going to feed stuff into the bottleneck faster.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so if for you it's thinking, then that's more important than the mechanics after that. All right. We have Tom back. All right. Let's get a show of hands. Who thinks they'd like to do spoken improv or spoken pantsing here?
Sure.
Okay. And the
Why
rest
not?
are leaning towards written. Okay.
I can
So
also go for written too. That's an option.
yeah. Let me put up a written prompt. Actually, it's 3 prompts that my spreadsheet does. So let me share. Find the spreadsheet. So that's my spreadsheet. And let me randomize it again. Come on. There we go. All right. So 3 prompts if you're doing written for you to think about. And always remember, the goal of the prompts is not to have you write the story in the prompts. If you do, great. The goal of the prompts is to get you writing. So if you end up using 0% of the actual prompt, but you get a hell of a lot of words out, you've won. If you sit there and struggle and get nothing out of the prompt because it just makes no sense to you, the prompt has failed. So here are the 3, the 3 that we have for people who are doing writing. Choose one of these or even mix and match them and work on that in writing while the rest of us gab. So we have a slime creature in a TV studio searching for collectibles, and the story might involve a cot. We have a baker in a colony that is lost in transit, and genealogy may be a factor. We have an empress at film school dealing with a doppelganger and a schedule. Let me paste those into the chat so I can go back to my face. and everybody can see everybody who's talking. Come on, chat. All right. So those are our written prompts. So who wants to volunteer to be the first to do spoken? And don't worry, no one's judging you in this. No one's expecting you to be as comfortable with this as I am, because I've been doing it for, God, I'm finding it 7 years and more now. So do we have a volunteer?
I'll jump
What the
in.
hell?
All right.
Sounds like
Did I say it or Tom?
Well, crap, if I'd known you would jump in.
Then we'll go to Mike. So Tom,
Okay.
let's give you 3 prompts and then I'll start a 5-minute timer. Actually, let's give you a little time to think and then I'll start the 5-minute timer. So let us get our 3 prompts. Come on. When you're doing this screen sharing stuff, sometimes the window you think has got your focus doesn't have your focus. And so you can press whatever keys you want and it don't matter. Come on. There we go. A janitor at Big Ben has been excommunicated and a seagull is involved. A construction worker in the French Quarter of New Orleans has agoraphobia, fear of crowds, and a fossil is involved. A Marine in the kitchen has lost records and a summons is involved. So when you think you've got something to start with, start telling a story. And I'll start the clock.
All right. Oh. And we're just doing 5 minutes of this?
Yeah, well, you should do 5 minutes unless you somehow manage to sell the story faster.
So 5 minutes. Gotcha.
All right, ready?
Probably not, but why the hell not? Let's jump into it.
Jump into it. Deep end. All right, go.
The noises and colors of Mardi Gras pelted Staff Sergeant Ramirez as he walked down the French Quarter. He had never been here before, and now he understood one important thing. This was not a place you went if you didn't like crowds. Slowly, he meandered his way through the crush of people, but he had somewhere to be, and this was not helping. A door opened in front of him and he ducked in there, hoping to get out of the press of people. Then he was assaulted by a different type of series of sounds and smells. Somehow he had walked into a kitchen for some unknown reason. Hey, what are you doing in here? A man in a white coat called to him. Sorry, got lost. Just trying to cut out of the crowd. You can't do it here. Ramirez just nodded and ducked back out. Realizing that there was an alley around, he decided to cut through there. And that was the biggest mistake of his life. And I'm lost.
That's a good start.
Yeah, I just don't know what the hell he ran into in the alley.
I could give you another prompt.
Sure. That might give me something.
When I get stuck and I'm doing this live, I've got a deck of cards I let somebody draw from to unstuck me. All right.
Okay, so this
here-
happens. Gotcha.
Here's a bunch of new prompts.
All right, so Ramirez is in the alley.
And it was a bad mistake.
A big mistake. In the darkest of the shadows at the corner of a building, he heard an ominous laugh. The very sounds rattled the marrow of his bones. Now, Ramirez had been a lot of places and done a lot of things and seen a lot of ugly. For him to feel this was something unusual. Now, what brings you out in a nice dark place like this, Marine boy? Man stepped out of the shadows. A black suit with a red shirt and a red silk tie. Don't you know Mardi Gras is the kind of place you don't want to walk around alone, especially away from the crowds? Too many people, Ramirez replied, and began to walk forward. No, Staff Sergeant Ramirez. You don't need to be coming down this way. Ramirez stopped. For once, he wasn't in uniform, so there was no name tape plastered on his chest. There was no rank insignia, nothing to tell this man who he was. Yet he knew his name. Who were you? Ramirez asked. Oh, my name's not important. What is important is that I'm here to make a deal with you. Not interested. The other man said, No, you don't understand. You're in my domain now. Ramirez put up his hands. Sorry to bother. When he turned around to return to Mardi Gras, trying to get out of the strange man's domain, suddenly everything twisted and turned and shifted. Mardi Gras wasn't there anymore. Now the shadow engulfed him in every direction, just him and the stranger.
And there's our 5 minutes. Just as you were starting to get, really, I thought, get some momentum.
Starting to get an idea.
Yeah. And it seemed like you were getting a little more comfortable as you basically walked around your world.
A little bit, yeah.
Anyone have some opinions on it? Remember, particularly opinions of, should he finish it? Should he set it aside, or should he chunk it? Or you don't get what he's up to.
I like it. I'm impressed by your sticking description in there just off the off the fly. I would think that's hard to do, like to remember to okay, describe things, describe what is he wearing, what's the surroundings. Yeah, I like all that.
Yeah,
Appreciate that.
I need the description myself. So the fact that you could improvise it that quickly, that's a strength.
Well, I write stream of consciousness anyway. So it's really just, instead of using the fingers, using the mouth.
Yep.
Mm.
Other feedback?
Yeah, I mean, like other folks, I think the description was strong. I also like the tone that you established. There was something like, a little bit like noir detective-ish, but with a sort of haphazard and out of place main character who's like not necessarily going to be the driving force as much as would be detective. I think in terms of whether or not you continue the story, that all hinges on whether or not you like the deal that this potentially Crossroads demon character is going to make, and whether or not you like the stakes of the deal.
I'm glad you got that. I was basically going for Crossroads demon kind of guy. I like that. I appreciate that. I feel better.
Excellent.
And he's got Marine confidence. That there's a little bit of bantering there. That he pushed back.
Yeah. I don't see a Marine staff sergeant just, tripping over himself.
All right.
So,
Any other comments? All right. So let's give Mike a prompt here. Mike, you said you've done improv before.
I have, yeah.
So you're a little bit comfortable with the concepts here, because I'm taking a lot of it just from improv sorts of approaches to things, but not nearly as much as you'd get in a good class or on stage. But you should be pretty comfortable with this, I think.
All right. Well, we'll see. It's been a while since I've done this kind of thing. So should I I don't know, should I set up a dictation document or something so that I can actually record as I go, or?
You can if you want. Otherwise, the video is being recorded and I can extract out your part if you'd like.
Oh, intriguing. Okay, yeah, I don't know how to do the tech side of taking the audio and turning it into dictation. Live recording, sure, but beyond that, I don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that's the thing to find out.
in my case, I'm using Dragon, and I'm using the higher end one, which will do that from audio files. The home version of Dragon will not. You have to dictate as you're speaking, or transcribe as you're speaking. Although I do know people who have had some luck with playing their recording into the computer microphone and transcribing that way.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I would love to pick your brain about that at some point. I do have Dragon Anywhere and the paid subscription version thing. So in theory, if that exists, that's a feature that should be available to me. I just don't know if it is.
Dragon Anywhere is a different animal. It's actually more accurate at transcription because it's being done by some super powerful server somewhere in the bowels of Seattle or someplace. I have no idea where.
Okay.
But me living out in the boondocks where I'm at, having to have a reliable internet connection to do my transcription is a problem. So Dragon Anywhere sort of assumes things about how you're walking around or moving around and so on, that you're in a particular situation that I just...
Yeah.
All right, let's get you some prompts here.
Sure.
And again, use what you can out of them. Astronaut at the Sydney Opera House, their back is out and the wrist is also somehow involved. A pig in a football stadium trying to find water and a meal. And a librarian in a steam tunnel who is bored and pizza is involved. So when you're ready to start, I will start the clock.
Okay. Let's do the thing.
All right.
All right, are we in?
Yep.
Cool. First down in fourth quarter was always a cause for excitement, especially for a team that had been behind in so many games this season. However, what was even stranger this time around was that when the ball was set down on the line of scrimmage, it didn't want to stay there. It attempted to roll, first to the left, and then when put back in place, thereafter to the right. The players retreated from it, not wanting to show that they were scared of a football per se, but also not wanting to be cursed by any kind of superstition that could carry on for more than one game. The refs also got in close, took a look at it, and at some point when the roar of the crowd was just quiet enough, one of them heard the most bizarre sound coming out of the football. Maybe it was a sort of squeak, or scrape against the AstroTurf. Possibly there was some bit of the leather straps that had managed to get stuck on something and finally came undone with a little bit of a... However, one of them, who had a little bit more knowledge and authority of this kind of thing, said, "Well, that's a pig sound." Of course, once it was said out loud, nobody was willing to argue with it. The football, having heard some fashion of pig, decided there was more opportunity to keep trying to roll. Given that there was a football moving of its own volition of a field that everyone was pretty sure was mostly level, it seemed to make more sense to give it its space. The fans were suddenly up on their feet like they had never been throughout this season. And the football continued to roll in that delightful warbling football pattern, off the line of scrimmage and toward not the end zone, but the sidelines. It seemed to be heading not for any particular player, but for the water boy. The poor water boy, who had been dressed in a jersey a few sizes too large for him, and the big number 1 for all of the urine jokes that would be passed on after the players had drunk said water and passed it on through, made a shriek much louder and higher than any pig ever could, and darted out of there. The football had picked up speed considerably. It was rolling in such a way that it would be able to knock one of the legs of the table, which sported that giant orange cylinder that could at some points be filled with Gatorade to be poured over a winning coach. Unfortunately, this coach had not won yet this season, and therefore no Gatorade was ever needed for this particular cylinder. So the football, with another resounding snort that shouldn't be made by leather that is inanimate, ran into the leg and collapsed the table entirely. The water jug fell onto the AstroTurf and immediately started spilling out. The football went to the water and tried to lap it up greedily, eagerly, before it all disappeared into the ground. And then, something that should not have been a shock to anyone, this same football that had proved some kind of autonomy began to grow. The bravest player, his name, of course, Jackson, decided that it was his duty to leap on this grenade and keep it contained so that the game could go on. Little did Jackson know that the football would prove much stronger than him. After all, Jackson could only play about half the game before he was too tired. This football had been in for the entire thing without sweating. Jackson found himself unceremoniously bucked up and then to one side and finally off of the football, who by now appeared to have grown 4 little stubs on its underside. Little was a relative term, considering that the football was now about 2.5 feet long, had burst some of its stuffing, and was making much more of a racket. This was not the kind of town where many people were likely to carry guns, but as always, there's one in any given crowd. And when people started screaming and running away, that brave hero stepped forward, withdrew his properly licensed concealed pistol, and aimed it at the growing hog. We
And
done?
there's our 5 minutes.
All right.
And a perfect cliffhanger. Okay, I've got the prompts up so you couldn't see my face, but I was grinning and giggling through much of that.
I'm intrigued.
Excellent.
I want to know what the hell's going on.
Yeah, that's fair. Maybe you and me both. All right, well, I'll just have to, yeah, I'll also see how many words that was. I did not end up doing any punctuation in that. I just kind of like kept telling it, but yeah.
Yeah, speaking the punctuation is a habit that takes a while to build, and once you built it, it's harder to not do it.
Yeah.
I find if I talk to a machine, I talk with punctuation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do talk through punctuation when I'm recording science fiction. I don't know why, but I've gotten in the habit of that by now. If I'm doing improv stuff, if I'm doing speech, if I'm like trotting out an idea, or if I'm in fantasy, punctuation just doesn't happen for me in my head.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
it's
Dragon
totally
is getting
trainable.
better at interpolating it. It's still not great, but it's better.
Yeah.
So, other feedback. Finish it, trunk it, chunk it.
Well, I'm definitely finish it.
All right.
All right, how's this for a title? I oink, therefore I am.
I like it. I like it.
Okay, it's much better than I was playing around with. All that could go through my head was pigskin. So, all right. For those of you who are working on the writing from the prompts, feel free in the chat to let us know if you've got something you're ready to discuss. And otherwise, do we have another volunteer for the spoken? No one's feeling brave. All right. If you got
You
no
only had 2 suckers.
Hey, 2 is good. 2 is good. I'm assuming that over time we'll get more practice and more comfortable and maybe more people. And honestly, I would love if we started to get an audience of just spectators, because that would mean that we are building a reputation that, hey, this is fun to watch, and in the process of being fun, people can learn stuff from it. So I do not have any objection to spectators at all. It shows the possibilities. I shared that that video of Harlan Ellison when he wrote in the bookstores, where he basically said he did it intentionally to show people that this is a job people sit down and do. It's not some mystical thing happening on some distant mountain. So he wanted to basically try to rip off the mystique and show that the effort and the craft is what really goes into it. And he had being at that point in his career, he'd been a talented, award-winning writer for 2 decades or more. So he had some experience and also some reputation that random people would show up at a bookstore to watch him type. No random person is going to show up at a bookstore to watch us type.
Unless pointing
Not
and
yet,
laughing
at
is
least.
involved.
Yeah, pointing and laughing might be involved. I am fully willing to, because I'm a ham. I'm fully willing to fall on my face on stage in front of everybody if it gets a pointing and laughing reaction, because it still means I amuse the crowd.
Yep. Same.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, I uploaded the doc from Dragon. Despite having no punctuation, it's actually reasonably clear. It's 721 words.
It's not bad.
That's much faster than I usually
5
dictate.
minutes, so that is 721 divided by 5 is come on, brain. That is what, something like 13 a minute.
Yeah, it's in like the 135 minute. Did I do that right? I don't know.
Ah,
Oh, 144 a minute.
how much?
144 a minute.
That's, I'm not saying that's impossible, but my top rate is about 100, and you were struggling in places. I'm wondering if Dragon's going to have some words in there that aren't real words, but I
I
haven't
believe it.
yet.
Yep.
So
Yeah. No, I'm not saying it's necessarily accurate. It's like I uploaded the doc and found word count without reading through
Yeah.
very thoroughly.
oh, we got one from Chuck here.
Yeah. I don't know. That's
Do you
what I
want
got.
to read it out or just
I can do that. Yeah. Let's see. Okay. The prompts were Baker Colony, Lost in Transit, genealogy. Okay. John cursed under his breath. They had slowed the ship spin again, and the lack of gravity played hell with his bread. The loaves rose to such extent they seemed to be mostly air. The colonists on board called them bread balloons. The only way to eat them was to grab a chunk and ball them up. Forget making slices. Another warp drop, you think? John said. The stockman, Fred, looked at him. Yeah, they seem to be coming more often. I heard navs are getting worse. They have to drop out more often and take a peek at where we are. Last drop, I heard we got 90 degrees off course. How we'll reach Talsetti before we run out of air or food beats the hell out of me. They were dropping out. John got that nauseous rumbling every time it happened. On impulse, he flipped the video screen that hung over the kitchen to the outside view, just in time to see the violet flash that accompanied a return to STL travel. The screen suddenly flashed orange to white, and the halls outside the kitchens were ablaze in light from the viewports that were out there. It was then that he noticed the air temperature was rising, quickly, and it wasn't because he was standing next to the ovens. That's as far as I got.
That's a pretty good start.
How I will work genealogy into that, I don't know.
Again, if you fail to include all the prompts, but you produce good words, screw the prompts. It's fun when you can cleverly work them in, but the good words is the goal.
Could be the genealogy of the sourdough starter
Yeah.
That's possible.
coming from the right mother.
Somehow that affects things. So yeah.
Other feedback on it.
It's interesting. I think it's wouldn't think that the story about a baker on a transport ship or a colony ship or whatever would necessarily be interesting, but it's not really just about him, obviously. And some of the, what's going on with all this. I kind of want to know where it goes.
Under Siege with, I forget the guy, action hero's name. The guy was a chef on a ship. He was also
Steven
in
Seagal.
other things,
Yeah.
but he started
Steven
as
Seagal,
chef
yeah.
on the ship.
Yeah.
So clearly what gets you into the story and into the conflict might be different from the conflict itself. And sometimes when I'm doing this pantsing, I will use a conflict to walk me into the conflict. And when all is said and done, I realize that the a conflict that I started with was trivial enough I should cut off that part of the story. So the important point was it got me thinking, got me talking. In the pantsing workshop, I used an analogy which is great if you remember your high school physics and pointless if you don't. But in high school physics, they talked about static friction versus dynamic friction. It takes more work to get something moving against friction than to keep it moving. Once it's in motion, it takes less pushing. But if you let it stop, now it's the molecules all sort of settle together a little bit, so you have to push harder to get it moving. So that's sort of how I see prompts is your brain is right now stopped. The prompt will get you moving and then action happens from there.
I took physiology instead of physics, so.
Yeah.
But it's true. I've experienced it and seen it, so.
Yeah.
Point made.
All right. Looks like Sam has joined us. How you doing, Sam?
I think he's muted.
Yeah, looks like he's muted. So. All right. Next volunteer, anyone? Should I put up another writing prompt for those doing the written side? Come on, Excel. Listen to me, Excel. Listen to me. All right. Let's put up another prompt here.
Actually, I've got a piece started.
Oh, okay.
1 second here. I gotta figure out how to get this thing out back where I need it to be. There we go. Okay, I actually have one ready to go.
All right. Let's hear it.
All right, I'm just going to go ahead and read it. It's kind of silly. I licked my paw and stared at the Empress Katerina. Why she decided to go to film school, particularly one ran by a very famous director, eluded me. She stood staring at the camera as if it were a raptor ready to bite her. Not that raptors bite. They rip, tear, and eat you alive. Very uncivilized creatures. They don't even play with their prey. Katerina, we have a schedule to keep. People need to know when the T-Rex will arrive in town. You don't have time for stage fright. She stuck out her tongue. Humans don't use their tongues to keep themselves clean. I licked my shoulder. It was a spot that never stayed clean. Get that cat out of here, she shrieked, jumping up on the desk, her short dress showing more than it should. Her legs were ugly. It's just a cat, the director answered, his expression bored. Empress, your people need to know where to hide. My eyes darted to the map on the back screen. Another shadow, a doppelganger, I think they called, appeared.
Pretty nice. And I love the voice. I love the cat perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Other opinions?
I like it. Again, I like the cat's perspective,
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's
especially
cheeky.
since my cat's being weird right now. So
Yeah.
Yeah, about half of what I've sold are cat stories. So
Okay, so you've got some practice in that, and that's perfectly fine with me when I'm doing this in front of an audience or when I'm encouraging you to pants to your strengths. And I do this in front of an audience. In fact, I let them know that if it's something I just can't do, the goal isn't stump the author, the goal is prompt the author. And so if you tell me that the setting is 17th century Vienna, I'm going to pass. Because what do I know about 17th century Vienna? I couldn't be entirely sure that Vienna even existed in the 17th century. So I'm going to pass on that one. Whereas when they give me Mars as a setting, it's like, okay, I'm ready for this one. I've got a whole Martian civilization built. I can tell some story out of that without any effort. Because again, it's not about the parlor trick of turning prompts into a story. It's about producing story, and the prompts can help you get started. All right. Looks like we lost Sam. We haven't.
Sam got called away by family.
Oh. Okay. It happens. So, all right. Well, this has been pretty good. Trent, have you got anything coming up on written side?
I've started. I'm kind of slow.
That's okay.
You and me both.
You're slow but thoughtful. I've loved your essays on Facebook. So
Thank you.
if slow is how you get those deep thoughts, it's working. All right, then we got 17 minutes left on my clock. We could do more rounds, or if you have questions about pantsing, questions about improv, questions about dictation, I can talk those as well.
So, Martin, is there a goal we should shoot for? Like, I just barely did an opening. Do we want to get a little further than that? Is there a word guideline or?
In the case of this group, because we want to give lots of people a chance to get some practice in, I think our 5 minutes, which is basically in terms of written text, depending on your reading speed, your written text for 5 minutes is going to be something like, let's see, that'd be 500 words, that'd be 2 double-spaced pages. So that's generally a good goal. If you're not doing it for this group here as an exercise, my typical dictation sessions run 90 minutes on the treadmill because it's a trick I pull on myself. I'm so busy telling the story that I don't notice that I'm working myself, doing my exercising and everything. So I get 90 minutes, burn about 500 calories, and produce about 5,000 words. So it's win-win-win.
Wow. Well,
But
you really are a pantser then.
But it's practice for 7 years now that I've been doing the dictation and the pantsing and so on. So it comes very naturally to me. Now I shared that link about Michael Moorcock's process. I am sometimes doing things like Moorcock suggests, where you have with you a list of ideas, a list of things that might make it into the story or might not, or things that could be inspirational and might not. The story I'm working on right now, I've got a bunch of notes of this person could be secretly a killer. This person here is a loyal friend and not too bright. This person is his smarter brother who trusts the not too bright brother's instincts. This person is the loyal retainer who is the first female retainer in history from her family because she had no brothers. And so she brings a different perspective to it. I'm putting up all of these little, essentially sticky notes for me, except because I have cats, I can't make them sticky because they will be gone. So I am putting up little bits of inspiration that I might or might not use in that 90-minute dictation. And I'm also sometimes doing what I call pre-research. So, for instance, I've got stories set in the Jupiter's moon system. And so sometimes the story is going to hinge on what the travel time is between one moon and another. And I am not going to be able to guess. I know enough orbital mechanics to know that my guess is always wrong. And so if I tell a story that depends on getting from Ganymede to Io in 30 hours, and it's actually going to take 10 days, I've got a story that just flopped. So I've got a giant chart that I hang on the wall, which is travel times between the major moons. I don't know which moons I'm going between, but I know that's the setting of the story. So get some information in ahead of time for that. So not pure pantsing, but again, pantsing or outlining, the goal is words.
One of the tricks that I'm using is, particularly if I work on multiple projects at the same time. So I go in, and when I'm reading through something, at the end of the story, I write myself, okay, this needs to happen. Why in the world did this happen? And why did this? I ask myself questions. I leave myself notes so that I'm not starting from scratch if I come back to it 6 months later. I have stories I came back to 8 years later.
Yep, that makes perfect sense. Dean Wesley Smith, who is an absolute firm believer in pantsing, says that he also creates it after the fact. As he finishes a chapter, he goes and writes an outline to himself. So he's very much in line with what you're doing.
Yeah.
That when he's all done, he has an outline, but he didn't know what it was when he started.
Well, I write in multiple genres, so
Yeah.
it's very necessary tool that I've learned to use.
Yeah. And I need to learn to do more of that because this story that I'm working on right now is one I literally dropped for 7 years. And so I'm having to relearn my own story world.
Yeah, I know that. I've got a trilogy I'm trying to finish, and I've got book 2 almost done. I'm 4,000 to 5,000 words away from finishing it, and it's due at the end of the year. And yeah, my publisher is expecting it. And then I've got another one that was supposed to be 3 books and has now turned into a series.
Of much more than 3.
Much more than 3. So it's been an interesting, there's at least 3 more. The first one's written, the second one started, and there's at least 2 more of this particular storyline. But there's, because of the universe I created, there's all kinds of alternate storylines too.
Yeah, I think I'm in a similar boat right now. So I've got a trilogy that's actually launching later this week. So the first book in it is being released this Friday, and book 3 is due by the 15th. So in terms of finishing, I'm probably only like, I mean, it's actually already done. I just need to, do some of the knitting scenes together pieces. So I'm probably in the 2,000 to 4,000 words left of content to stitch together. But yeah, and that one is also being expanded into series beyond trilogy. I just might not be the one writing all of it. We'll see how that goes. But in terms of the dictation, that's something that I'm trying to learn bit by bit. I tend to do most of my first drafts as just think alouds, and I will do the go for a late night walk in the neighborhood. I'll be the weirdo who talks to myself, and I just kind of think through the scene while I have high energy, and then I go home, listen to it, and type it out as I go. And in the process of typing, change things, and that becomes my second draft. But I'd like to get to a point where I can get a typed out first draft from dictation. I just haven't built up that skill set to be able to do it. I started doing it this summer, and then was interrupted when I went on contract with the publisher and needed to, get my head into another project with a deadline in mind. But I have I do have one project that has been so far purely dictated. I have not typed a single word of it. I'm like, I want to dictate through the entire novel before I start typing anything out and changing stuff. And so that's the thing that I'm hoping to jump back into early next year.
I know it took me something more than 3 months to reach that point, and something less than 3 years, but I wasn't keeping good records. So I know my first story was dictated in completely random order over about 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
And at the 3-year point, I was dictating novel in order. I don't know where I crossed that line in between the 3 months and 3 years.
That's fair. In this
closer to 3 months.
What's that?
I think it's closer to the 3 months than 3 years.
Hi.
I mean, in this case, I'm not exactly doing the pantsing thing. I do have an outline written for that.
How are y'all doing?
I'm just going in order, scene by scene, and dictating it.
Yeah. Well, that's Kevin J. Anderson's approach. Is he has an outline, and when he sets out on his hike in the morning, he said, okay, I need to have this battle take place and this ship get lost at sea. So that's what I'm working on today.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's got these sort of very high level steps in the story, and then
It is.
in a step.
It's like she'll eat a little bit when we go out. It's just when we eat
I'm always
eat a whole bunch of it.
here's where I'm hiking today, that kind of thing.
Sorry, Dana, say again?
Okay, well, but with Kevin, I always watch his posts to see where he's out hiking today, where he's writing from.
Yeah. Yeah, he's got the life. I've just got a treadmill. He's got the Rocky Mountains.
Mm-hmm.
Trying real hard not to be jealous about that. Failing miserably.
Yeah, it's definitely a different life he's got there.
I mean, in fairness, if I went out for a hike right where I'm at, I'd be an adventure too, but that's probably because I'd be shot.
Let's not.
Okay.
And in fact, one of the reasons I am on the treadmill as opposed to walking outside to do my dictating is that I've twice come back with ticks on me, and twice was enough. Not as dangerous as getting shot, but definitely safety is an issue.
Yeah.
I'll
My
have to keep that in
hometown
mind.
is special.
Yeah. I mean, I'm about to move cross country. My wife and I are relocating to Richmond, Virginia, in a couple months, and yeah, so we're going to be living in in a place that's like close to a couple of like lowland lakes and some forest trails. So I'm going to be scouting those, and hopefully there's low risk of ticks and shooting.
Look out for snakes.
But I'll keep y'all posted. Yeah.
Yeah, I live in the city, so I really don't have anywhere to walk. And we have crazy drivers. So
Which city?
I live on the east. I'm in the Denver metro area and I live far east. I'm in Aurora.
Okay.
So I have a really nice neighborhood, but people use our neighborhood as a shortcut. So it's
Yeah, you
like,
don't need to get run over just because you're paying attention to the story.
yeah.
Like Stephen King. Oh, he was reading, wasn't he? He was reading.
Yeah, he was just hiking, but the other guy, because I just finished re-listening to his book, the other guy was turning around and looking at his back seat because his dog had gotten into the meat.
Right.
And that
Well,
is,
the question is, what kind of meat was it? Because it might be justified.
I think it was
Really good
steaks.
steak.
It was steaks, I think.
yeah.
Then yeah, I got to give him a pass on that one. Sorry. Sorry, Stephen.
So, but that is actually a factor I have had to keep in mind when doing dictation while driving, is I don't want to be distracted driving.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be, when I'm buying my equipment, I want my equipment to be hands-free as much as possible. Where it's not hands-free, I want a tactile button. I can feel that it pushed. Because part of the problem with Dragon Anywhere on a phone is it's a smooth glass surface. Did I press that button or not? And my recorder beeps when I start recording. Dragon Anywhere doesn't beep, and doesn't beep when it stops. So I'm driving down the road and I lose cell signal and I don't know it. So I had to work hard on not being distracted. And I didn't know it was affecting me. But when I went from dictating in the Jeep to dictating on the treadmill, my words per minute jumped from 34 driving to 54 on the treadmill. So apparently I had a lot of my brain, fair enough, concentrating on safety. Thank you, Trent.
Yeah, I spent a summer, I almost quit writing. And so I spent a summer doing just writing fan fiction. And I went from doing 1,000, 1,500 words to 3,000 in just a very short length of time, like three months. So now I know I can do it. So it's, and this is just, and I'm talking about typing and I don't dictate anything. So that was kind of like my practice time, and I learned a lot by doing that. I also had to remind myself why I liked writing. So that was a worthwhile thing. Besides, in the back of my mind, I was going, if you stop writing, then your ex-husband wins and he doesn't need to win anything. Long story.
Fair.
It's a great
Hey,
moment.
I respect anyone who uses spite as a motivator.
Well, I
I
killed
love it.
in my paranormal romance that's due out here soon.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
I use things that were real, and I use things that I got out of like NCIS and Criminal Minds, and I use that as part of it. And I keep having to reassure my publisher, no, he was not violent. He was scary, but he wasn't violent. It's okay. Because she's a little freaked out about the whole thing. And I'm like, it's all right. It's okay. Don't worry about it. The violent things never happened. So.
All right, we are just about at the end of an hour. I wanted to bring something up for a thumbs up, thumbs down from the crowd. FireCon may ask if they can use a recording of this video since the genesis of the group came out of FireCon. If anyone objects, I will tell them no, we can't, because somebody felt like this was something that they felt was a closed private group and they didn't want it public. So I leave that up to you. I am a big friend of the FireCon people, so I want to help them out, but this should be a place that you feel safe. Letting yourself look even a little embarrassing because you're stumbling for a story. So if you feel that this would be something you don't want seen, give me a thumbs down and keep it private.
I'm an attention whore.
Okay, I appreciate that.
I've read fan fiction and conventions over Zoom, so I'm fine with it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, really, at this point, anything that directs more people to me and the stuff that I'm starting to publish, like, I don't mind that.
Well, that's what I'm hoping, is that if it does become known and becomes maybe some popularity, it gives you that promotion.
Mhm.
Yeah, particularly since I'm in one genre under one name and paranormal romance one name. So they don't fit my platform
Yeah.
because it's totally different than what I normally write.
All right. Then I will say, first of all, thank you all for showing up and making me feel like, yes, this isn't just a crazy idea that nobody cares about. That's very encouraging to me. I will be trying to do this same time every week. I will point out that although you don't necessarily have my magic prompt generator, if I'm ever unavailable, nothing stops you all from getting together and pantsing some stories out. Same time every week for at least the rest of the year, and see if we can get something that's helping all of us and maybe also building.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for
Yep.
hosting.
Yeah, thank you for
Appreciate it.
All right, everybody have a good week.
Yep, you too.
Yeah,
Nice.
you too.
So-
This is fun.
Mhm.